Welcome back to the Pro Sports Podcasters on YouTube. My name is Cobe. Most of you know me as Kobe from the podcast. And today I want to talk about what's being overlooked on Sorare NBA. The one thing that no one's really talking about. None of the other channels, nobody on Discord, nobody on Reddit. Very few people are even mentioning it, and that's experience points. And experience points, although right now aren't a big part of it, they will become a big part in maybe a month's time. It's going to be something that if you don't have your players pumped up in levels and experience, you're going to lose to people who have gone through the process of doing so. And that's something I've been preaching from the very beginning. In one of the very first videos I did on Sorare NBA was I said I'm going to assemble a team of players that I'm going to stick with for the majority of the season. Sure, I'm going to have the odd players shuttle in and out, but for the most part, I'm going to keep my main squad rolling every single week. There are specific players that I don't want to miss a single week of either it be in a tournament or in training so that their experience levels can keep building. Because there's two reasons for this. Number one, I don't want to lose to somebody with the same roster as me just because their players have more experience. I just don't want that to happen. I only got into Sorare right now as the NBA platform launched, although I am playing the football side, or soccer for some of you, side of things, and I've had some pretty good rosters, actually, on the soccer side. Now, I'm only playing commons there because to buy in at this point is extremely costly. But even on the common side, I've had some really good teams pop, but end up finishing way down the list because when I look at who's won, they've got players with 20% plus bonuses due to experience. So I'm never going to catch these guys. It's going to take a long time before I ever get to a point where I can compete with them. Now, in Sorare NBA, it's brand new. Everyone starts at zero. So it's all equal now. But when you look at what some of these other channels are saying, and they're telling you quite literally every single game week to go out and get this particular player for your roster this week, target this particular player for your roster this week. Maybe get this guy for a week or two because the player ahead of him is injured and now he's going to get more minutes. These are all good strategies to try and win now, but in the long term, it's not going to help you down the road. It really isn't. Maybe you score, maybe you pop with one of those particular players this particular week or next week, and you get an immediate return from that. But if you continuously play the same starting five, or let's say the same starting four and you have one player that you cycle in and out depending on matchup, then those particular players are going to be netting you far more points down the line against people who are, say, changing up their rosters every single week. Now, you could say, well, you can change your roster every week and you can just toss other guys in training. Now, if you have a lot of viable players, that's a strategy worth employing because your training is only as good as the team you're training them with. If you got a bunch of nobodies that you're putting in training, sure, they're going to get some additional experience, but they're not going to net much because a big portion of your experience comes down to how well that team would have done provided they were in a tournament. So if you put a training team together with one stud, two players with no games, and two low value players, we're talking guys that get, under 10 points, then sure, your stud's going to get the 75-point base, but then he's only going to get 12.5% of whatever the team is able to total. So you got two players that aren't playing, they get you nothing. You got a couple of less than 10-point players, Yahoo, maybe you're getting 2 points off of them. So you're really relying on your stud to have his huge game, and that's where he gets his XP. Strictly for himself, he doesn't benefit off anybody else in the group. But if that's what you're hoping for, then why aren't you playing that player? Why isn't he in your roster to begin with if you're hoping for him to pop? It's a bad strategy. That shit doesn't work. What you need to do is build a core group of players that you can play every single week in tournaments. And if occasionally you can't because maybe they're injured, then sure, stick them with a group of your best possible bench guys in a training group in order to get some additional experience that particular week. But what you shouldn't be doing is changing your core groups every single week and just relying on that to continuously work, because eventually picking up players and throwing them in specific weeks isn't going to help you that great, even if they pop a little bit when you're against a team stacked full of players who already get point bonuses due to their experience. Think long term, unless this is a short term thing for you. But like for me, like everything I've mentioned before, when it comes to NFTs, I'm looking at it long term. I'm in it for the long term. And that brings me to the second reason why you should be pumping up your players. Let's say you drop whatever you want to consider serious money to be. You put some serious investment into specific players who you know can really bolster a team. And you're playing them often, but not always. Well, you got to remember they begin, because this is their first season, they begin with that 5% bonus. And everyone gets that in Limited. And of course, it goes up. Everyone has their bonus in their first season of release of the card. But then next season, when this first season completes and we get around to next season, you lose that initial bonus. So off a Limited card, 5% of whatever you've totaled in bonuses is taken away beginning in the next season. So if you didn't add that much to them, let's say you only added, 4% to them. You got them up to level 8. You got an additional 4% on top of the 5. So you had 9 at the end of the season. But starting the next season, you're at 4. That means anybody who joins at that time and buys the next season's card of your player, let's just say it's Giannis in this case, they begin at 5 because it's the first season of that card. So they start with a 1% bonus above you. You start at a negative, even though you've been playing longer. Even though you've been in it for a full season, a brand new player can come in and have an advantage over you if you haven't pumped up the players that you intend to keep going into next season. Now, the alternative is you sell everybody. You get toward the end of the season and you just sell everyone. But it's not going to be very appealing to somebody buying one of your players if they look at the percentage bonus and realize, oh shit, if I buy this guy, I'm going to be at a negative next season. I might as well just wait and buy next season's card and get a better bonus. So you essentially price yourself right out of the market by not building up your player enough. Like I said, right now, people aren't really noticing. But eventually that's going to change. And people are going to start looking at the managers markets for values, and they're going to start factoring in, well, what's that player's experience at? Is it pumped up? Is it a pumped up player? Or is it just someone this guy won off the last week and now he wants to throw him up there and get rid of him for a profit, and it's got no experience built into it yet? So I'm starting from scratch with this particular player and it's halfway through the season. Won't be too appealing. So, you've got two options. Option 1, you assemble a core group of players that you're always playing. Option 2, you have a huge variance of top players so that not only can you start great teams, but you can have great training teams also. Or 3, you keep doing what you're doing. Switch players in and out every single week. Buy and sell like crazy. And hope that your players pop well enough to have enough points to leapfrog those players who have actually been built up with experience. You can keep hoping like that. Eventually that's going to lose. I'm telling you, eventually that's not going to be the way to go. But do what you want to do. Have your own strategies. I've got mine. I got my core group. I literally have 15 limited players in my collection. I've got my contender team. I've got my champion team. And then I have, a few other guys I can slot in and out or put together in a very strong training team. What's your plan? Let me know in the comments. Let me know which way you're going. And if you've considered XP at all at this point, because really, you should be. Till next time.